Josh Donaldson, the bringer of rain, has officially retired. Will he retire as a Toronto Blue Jay? Let's get into it next.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Just before we sort of get into everything, I've been absolutely devastatingly sick the past 2 days. So if I sounded like absolute hell, then sorry. Carter and me I don't think we've left our rooms in the past day because we have both been dead. And we're not sure if somebody along the weekend decided to sneeze directly into our mouths, but it didn't work out well for us, and we're paying for it. We're paying for it brutally. I look like death. I look like death kicked me down a flight of stairs, actually.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what you were doing this weekend with all that sneezing and mouth situation, but I definitely was not doing that. I'm going to blame this sort of on you, though, because I didn't feel bad until Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. Then Sunday night, I started getting a sore throat, and then Monday morning hit me like a truck. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Definitely had better days, but I think I'm going to have to start staying away from you on your weekend routine because I'm not sure what goes on Saturday nights in Brittany Wasco's lives.
All right, it's not that crazy. It was fine. I was sort of feeling sick Friday, and then all weekend it just rolled through me. And then it was actually like the worst today, surprisingly. I went to work yesterday, felt not good, but not like horrible. I woke up this morning and I'm like, I couldn't even open my jaw. That's how bad it was. Like I was struggling. Like my lymph nodes or something were like it fused together. I'm not even sure. It was horrible. But then my spirits got lifted because, sort of lifted, sort of saddened because Josh Donaldson, the bringer of rain, my favorite player of all time ever, has now officially retired. And it's a sad day.
Well, at the end, you were just hoping for his retirement. You said you were a little bit happy about seeing that retirement sign from Donaldson. What's going on there? Didn't look great in Milwaukee, obviously. It could have been better with the Braves. But I mean, great career with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Unbelievable career. And I'm more just happy for him than anything. I mean, it sucks. I would have loved to see, I would have loved to go to the ball games and still been able to watch him play. But, it was getting to that point, I think, in his career where he wasn't getting, at bats. He wasn't playing very great. And I think it's good that he got out and where it wasn't like a tarnish on the, career that he did have. And I do sort of want to go over some of his career stats, his stats at the Blue Jays. I think I just want to pay a little bit of homage to him as in, because he's my favorite player. He's probably a lot of people's favorites, growing up watching them. That 2014, 2016, run sort of in there was when I was probably at my peak of Blue Jays excitement. I would literally come home from school on those days, and coming home from school wasn't that funny. And I'd sit on the couch, me and my mom, and we just watch baseball all night. And it was just unbelievable. It was like peak moments for me. So, career stats. He ended with a 46.8 WAR, a 5,022 at-bats, 1,310 hits, 279 home runs, a 261 batting average, and 816 RBIs. I mean, pretty outstanding numbers for a guy who really hadn't played that well in his last few seasons. To see it really not tarnish those numbers is pretty exciting, pretty unbelievable. And it's just for how good he did play in his peak years.
Yeah, he had a great career with Oakland and as well with the Toronto Blue Jays. You really kind of saw him get to his strides in his career in that 2014 season with the Athletics and then getting traded to the Blue Jays for that 2015 season. Yeah, can't say enough about his season in 2015. He was pretty much the sole reason. Well, not the only sole reason. Obviously, there was a bunch of other guys that contributed. You got David Price at the deadline, Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion in the middle of that order. Troy Tulowitzki was there. A ton of just great players that could end up in the Hall of Fame. We'll have to see kind of how their careers play out. Well, I guess when you think about it, all four of them are done. So we'll see what happens with the Hall of Fame introduction, stuff like that. I don't really see any of them getting there. Maybe Jose Bautista, but I don't think his career was long enough time, or he didn't have success for a long enough time to be in the Hall of Fame. Josh Donaldson is going back to his MVP season with the Blue Jays. He had 184 hits, 41 home runs, 123 RBIs, a 297 average, weighted runs created plus 154, and an OPS of 939. This was a guy that was just electric to have in the stadium. They called him the bringer of rain for a reason. Always seemed to come in clutch home runs when he needed them, clutch hits. Led the AL in RBIs and 8 extra base hits in that season, and just a huge guy to just fire up the crowd and the dugout during that playoff run.
Yeah, and of course, you know, there were so many electric moments with that team. But obviously, the one for Josh Donaldson that stands out above the rest probably was in 2016, the ALDS against Texas, and he made that scramble dash for home to win them the game. It was something special, and I think I actually have that framed picture on my wall back at my parents' house. And it was just it was something else watching that guy play. Um, as a kid, watching him play, it made me love the game. So he really holds a special place in my heart. I always felt like, when I played the same sort of way with the intensity. And don't get me wrong, and sometimes it was over intensity with Josh Donaldson. But at the end of the day, he really wanted to win. And it's too bad that he never was able to get, a World Series title. But he had some amazing accomplishments: 2015 MVP, three-time All-Star, 2014, 2015, 2016, two-time Silver Slugger, 2015, 2016. And what I want to bring up is how many times he was in the MVP voting. He was fourth in 2023 in voting, eighth in 2014, first obviously in 2015, fourth in 2016, 22nd in 2017, so a little bit of a drop. But then again in 2019, he was 11th in overall MVP voting. So a guy that just, when he was the major player on the teams, you knew it, and everybody on the field knew that he was the best player on that team. And just super exciting to watch. And going over all those awards, Carter, does the MVP voting shock you at all?
Yeah, no, he was definitely an impact player in those 2014, 2015, and 2016 seasons. That doesn't surprise me. That surprised me a little bit in 2019 that he was mentioned even close to being in the top 10 in those MVP votings. It just shows the longevity in Josh Donaldson's career. And just a guy that another fleece of a third baseman that we seem to be getting from the Athletics. We could love to use one right now. Hopefully they're brewing one in the minor leagues down there. So you saw it with Matt Chapman as well. Obviously, the impact comparing Josh Donaldson to Matt Chapman is not nowhere close to being in the same stratosphere. But one thing that actually surprised me just thinking about this, and it kind of recollected with me more even on the podcast, just naming those four players from that 2015 team with Edwin, Bautista, Troy Tulowitzki, and Donaldson. How Donaldson was the last player, and now he's retired. And that 2015 was only 9 years ago, which seems which is just crazy how time flies. And now we're with a new year and new era of Toronto Blue Jays baseball. But Josh Donaldson, a guy that you could tell when he was on the field, just brought a different aura around him when he was on the field. A guy that you definitely did not want to mess with, as he showed throughout his Blue Jays career.
Yeah, and I know me and you always get into these conversations about, who's going to be in the Blue Jays Ring of Honor, who's going to be, the next Hall of Famer that we see come from the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm going to put it out there, and I want to ask everybody in the comments of what they think as well, and then I'll give my opinions. But do you think that Josh Donaldson has a shot to be in the Ring of Honor or in the Hall of Fame? And then I do got another question after as well about his retirement.
Yeah, I think in the sense of the Hall of Fame, I think there's probably more of a debate for him to be in the Hall of Fame than I'm going to give him credit for. But I'm going to say no. I just don't think Josh Donaldson was impactful for probably a 5 to 6 year period of time where he was one of the best players in the league and was in those conversations. But I don't think he had the longevity of his career. Did play 13 seasons, was fairly successful in all of those 13 seasons, did have a little bit of a dip near the end of his career. But just saying that, I don't think he'll be in the Hall of Fame conversations. When you look at the Ring of Honor in his time with Toronto, he did everything you really could ask for. He brought this team to two back-to-back ALCSs, something we didn't see for the Blue Jays. We didn't see the Blue Jays in a long time. There wasn't really like World Series aspirations since that like 1991, 1992, Joe Carter era, Carlos Delgado, all those guys. So just comparing it back to then, those are two of Toronto's best teams probably ever in the history of the franchise in those seasons. So I think if Josh Donaldson, he would have won a World Series with Toronto, he probably could have seen him in the Ring of Honor. But I think with his limited time in Toronto, just it being just under 4 years, I don't see him being in the Ring of Honor either, unfortunately.
For me, I 100% agree with you on the Hall of Fame. I think it's the numbers just aren't quite there. And I think if he would have had 7, 8, 9 great seasons, then that conversation could be had. And he's my favorite player of all time. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say that. It hurts me. But just looking over the numbers themselves, it's not looking fantastic. I mean, his WAR is really great. I think he's number 27 all time for third baseman in WAR. So obviously that helps him out, but there's a lot of other statistics that go into it. He'll be on the ballot most likely, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that sort of gets weighted on, eventually passed over. I would love it if he was in the Hall of Fame. That would fire me up more than anyone would believe. And in the Ring of Honor, I could definitely see them having a good case for that. I think the energy that he brought during one of the prime times to be a Toronto Blue Jays fan, I think that was it. And Donaldson embodied everything that we wanted to see at the time. And I think he doesn't get enough love for that. I think everybody looks at Edwin and Batista, but really look at the difference maker on this team. And most of the time, it was Josh Donaldson making those big plays in those big moments. And of course, I mean, there's nothing to take away from Jose Batista and Edwin Encarnacion because they are amazing, amazing players. But Josh Donaldson was another breed. The way he played, his attitude, I think it would be a very big missed opportunity not to have him there. In my final question for you on Josh Donaldson a little bit is, do you think that he's going to retire as a Toronto Blue Jay?
I think he should, just based off of his career. He has played with a lot of teams. The two that you'd really have to debate with are the Oakland Athletics and the Toronto Blue Jays. It's tough for him because he started his career in Oakland, but I think he had pretty much all of his major league success with the Toronto Blue Jays, especially his best years being in 2015 and 2016. Would Josh Donaldson be open to coming back to Toronto? I'm not sure. I know that the leaving, I don't think there was any harsh feelings there, but I don't think it was like a great farewell or anything. I don't think there was anything special set up for him. So I know Josh Donaldson does have a little bit of an ego on him, but that's what made him so good of a baseball player, is that he had that confidence. For some reason, I don't feel like he's going to even care about retiring in Toronto. I think he's just going to step away from baseball and kind of enjoy the things in life that he didn't necessarily have time for during his career.
Yeah, which he's talked about, going back, spending time with his family. He's got young kids, new wife, a new-ish wife. I'm not exactly sure when they were married. I think it was only a few years ago now. But being able to really spend time with them, and I think that's what helped make his decision. He did have some offers this past year to come play again, but I think in the offseason he took some time with his family and really finally came to the decision that, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not, I think he realized that he's not really helping anybody out there anymore. So he made that call. I think that he maybe won't retire as a Blue Jay. And if he does, I think that's when he will go into the Ring of Honor, if that happens.
You would think that he would need to retire as a Blue Jay for him to even be considered to go into the Ring of Honor?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, because with Josh Donaldson, he is 38, and like you said, near the end of his career, you could tell he just didn't have the same life in him as he did earlier in his career. For the Ring of Honor argument, I think if you combined his Oakland athletic stats and even just the time frame, you would give him another 4 years with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think it would be no question that this guy would be in the Ring of Honor. That at that point, he would have contributed 8 years of his career to the Toronto Blue Jays, would have been coming up with Jose Bautista. So again, that might have been interesting to see if we would have had Josh Donaldson in 2011 compared to getting him in 2015, how he would have developed with Jose Bautista throughout those years.
Yeah, I just think, looking at the time, right? Looking at the guys that are already in the Ring of Honor and looking at, really, it's going back to what you said a little bit of that was the prime time for now Toronto Blue Jays fans, right? This younger generation coming up, including us two. that was the team that we watched. That's the team that we grew up watching. And it was an amazing run. And like you said, the best run since we went on to win the World Series. So I think to pass over some of these guys, I think would be a mistake. And I think give them the credit where the credit is due for what they did for this franchise.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Josh Donaldson brought some of my favorite Blue Jays memories that I have of this team back in 2015 and 2016. Just some of those playoff performances. I just remember every time he came up, there was just a different feeling in the room when I would watch baseball games with my dad. You could just tell that this guy was on a different level, and he struck fear into pitchers' hearts every time he seemed to step in the batter's box in his prime.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I don't know if you remember this. I think so. I think we've talked about it. We played high school ball together, and back then it was that we were a tight knit team back in the day. You know, we were all buddies from the same town and playing high school ball together. And we do this thing during warm up every time where we'd go out. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but we'd go out to center field. We do our stretches, which we'd never end up stretching. We would just be idiots out there, and we'd end up talking about whatever. And then before every game, we'd go, okay, Carter first, who are you playing as today? Braden, who are you playing as today? And most of the time, my answer was 2015 Josh Donaldson. So it's just funny how, you know, those little memories of these players that, you know, were so big during our childhoods now are retiring. It's just crazy to think about. And the memories that they brought us, it was amazing. So congratulations to him on the retirement. But now we're going to get back into talking about a little bit of the new Blue Jays team and how good Vladdy looks, because, oh my God, did he crush that baseball today.
Today's show sponsor is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of betting against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Conference tournaments are here, which means the biggest moments in college basketball are getting closer. Part of the action on PrizePicks for both men's and women's college basketball. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits in the game of the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays alive. So just download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for your first deposit for PrizePicks to match that with a $100 deposit of their own. That's code LOCKEDONMLB and use code PrizePicks for your $100 deposit on PrizePicks.
So Vladdy absolutely crushes baseballs, as we know, and I think he's just showing up. He's showing up. He's sending balls to the moon. I think that one went and saw Bradley Zimmer out there somewhere.
Yeah, that home run quickly took over my favorite spring training home run. I had Daniel Vogelback. That one was so cool to watch. But seeing Vladdy just step into a baseball and getting the entirety of the baseball and launching it into left center field, 438 feet, I could get used to seeing that.
Yeah, he absolutely smacked that. And honestly, what a good day for him. He went 2 for 3. He had a home run, a run as well. Just an outstanding day at the plate. Of course, 5 total bases. Yeah, just a great day. Great seeing the power. And we've always talked about Vladdy has the hard hit percentage. He hits balls hard all the time. It's just that the swing plane that he just couldn't figure out last season, and it already looks like he might be stepping back into prime time Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, just on that swing by itself, it kind of looked like he waited a little extra second to load up, got underneath the baseball, and just drove it into the stands. You could tell right off the bat that that thing was crushed. And it's we always talk about this on the podcast as well. It's so nice to see Blue Jays power hitters pull the baseball and launch home runs like that. It's a little bit different. It's nice to see those opposite hit like 390 flares over the wall, but those moon balls to left field, I'll never get tired of seeing those, especially when they come from a former MVP candidate, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, and of course, we've talked a ton about, if Vlad is going to make a comeback into his own this season, and what we're going to expect from him, and we were comparing him, who's more likely to have a bounce back, him, Kirk, Manoah, whoever. And I think Vlad, just the work that he's obviously put in, I think really shows the dedication to this team and the dedication to himself and to being better. I think he's really, really turned over a new leaf, and he looks amazing out there.
Well, just going back from 2021, where he had his MVP candidate season, since then his batting average has steadily declined. His home runs have went down, and the biggest notice that I was looking at when I was looking at his stats compared to 2021, 2022, and 2023 was that in 2021 he barreled 19 or more baseballs than he did last season. So he had 75 barrel baseballs in 2021, 56 last season. And just a little bit of backstory on what a barrel ball is. The ball needs to be hit at least 98 miles per hour off the bat between a launch angle of 26 to 30. So that's just kind of in that sweet spot where they get all of the ball. They can drive it up into the gaps. That would qualify for, it doesn't have to be a home run necessarily. It could be a hard hit single. It could be a double, triple, whatever it is. But yeah, 19 less home runs. It's about 30% or hard hit balls, barrel balls. That's 30% less than what he had in 2021. And that is a major thing we saw from Vladdy. He wasn't driving the ball deep. He didn't have a good slugging percentage. He wasn't hitting home runs, and that's something we need from the number 3 hitter in this order.
Yeah, and as we know, and we've talked about, it's all comes down to that launch angle. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew. It's actually funny. An old pitching coach of mine, or just coach in general, I should say. We were talking actually at a hockey game the other couple weeks ago. It must be a couple months ago now, actually, and he was saying that the amount of times, like, he actually had like a pen and paper, was writing down the amount of times balls were hit into the dirt instead of with that launch angle. He just drills that into your head. And actually, talk about somebody about launch angles. Talk to Josh Donaldson about launch angles. That guy has made a point across every network about teaching kids early to not swing for ground balls. You swing to drive the baseball. So Vladdy obviously took a page out of that book and is trying to get back to that proper launch angle, that proper driving the ball into the gap. And obviously, I think we're all going to see that it's going to pay off this season.
Well, even just looking at it from the very simplistic standpoint of there's 4 players in the infield, 5 with the pitcher. There's only 3 in the outfield. And you're going to do a lot more damage driving the ball into the outfield, or if it lands or getting extra base hits, than you are with a ground ball through the infield. At best, getting a single, maybe a lucky double if you're hitting it as hard as Vladdy. But yeah, if we could see anything even close to 2021 Vladdy and just see him hit the ball in the air. I don't care if this guy flies out every single time in the game. I would much rather see that than him hammering the ball into the ground and grounding into double plays. At least in his situations where he's going to be hitting in this lineup, he will probably have opportunities with runners on third base. And if he can drive the ball into the outfield with less than 2 outs, that's at least a sacrifice run that we didn't really see a lot of last season.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. And obviously, Vlad hitting balls into the field and finding gaps is going to be a cornerstone for this team this season. They need him to be really good. They need him to get back to Vladdy shape and Vladdy form. And I think that's going to do major, major work for this team, because if you have Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. both playing unbelievable, you get a bounce back from Kirk. Jano keeps it up somehow this year. Springer can hit a couple more, leadoff bombs for you. I think you'll be pretty pleased with that. And speaking of all those rest of those guys, it was a pretty big day out for our boys in spring training. Got a bunch of guys out this over the game today. So we want to get into that, talk about some of the stats. We'll break that all down for you next.
And just before we head out for a break here, I wanted to throw it over to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. With college sports going on, the NHL trade deadline, I believe, is actually Friday. So that's going to be heating up really quickly. The NBA playoffs are coming up soon as well. That's a perfect opportunity for you guys to tune in to our 24/7 streaming channel. So just go to the Locked On Sports Today channel on YouTube and subscribe.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I have been actually back on a little bit of a winning streak after a brutal couple losses, and it's all thanks to FanDuel's pre-made same-game parlays. They've been coming in clutch for me in the NHL. I also said I won a 50-50 at the hockey game the other day, so I'm up money right now. I was thinking, hey, maybe I'll go to the casino. Maybe I'll play some blackjack in the next few nights. But then I'm thinking, you know what? I'll just throw some more bets on some NHL games and hopefully actually win some money and not throw it down the toilet at some casinos.
You seem to like to waste your money in any facet whatsoever. I don't think it really matters if it's a casino, whether it's a VLT. Well, screw it, it's a scratch ticket sometimes, right? So you
Do
do it
what
in
you got to do.
multiple ways.
Yep, you got to win how you can, but FanDuel actually helps you win with their pre-made live same game parlays. Just visit fanduel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So we're just going to get into a quick couple things from today's game and what we saw. Carter's got some cool standouts as well. A couple things that I wanted to just point out. Not a great day from Springer today. He went over 2, which is a little bit tough. But again, I don't read too much into spring training, especially on guys that are proven. Bichette, nice day for him today. 1 for 3, 2 RBIs, sort of big. Vladdy, obviously, huge day. Carter, any standouts for you today?
I just want to start out by saying any game where I got to watch like Vladdy, Bichette, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, all these players play. It's spring training in March. I can't get enough of it. I loved it. But one thing that a guy that I was sort of high on, I didn't think he was going to do anything crazy for the Toronto Blue Jays this season. Guy that I thought might get a few reps at third base, but I'm getting sick of seeing Eduardo Escobar's at bats. He had 2 strikeouts again, just looked terrible. Almost looked a little bit Matt Chapman-esque. I saw one today. He had a middle heater, completely whiffed on it. A guy, I can't handle seeing that. I know we're not paying him anything, but I'm glad we didn't get Matt Chapman back, but I don't want to see another third baseman that's missing middle fastballs again.
And of course, talking about our third base situation, of course, with Escobar, IKF, Espinal, these guys have all not been hitting very well. Like I said, I think in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, that they were 3 for 18, and this was, before the last 3 or 4 games, but not doing well, to say the least. So it's going to be interesting to see who starts at third base in the beginning of the season. If it will be Schneider, if it will be Biggio, who it'll be, I don't know. Justin Turner, maybe throw names at the wall right now because nobody has a hot clue, I don't think.
I've actually, so far from what I've seen at third base and just in the infield this season so far, obviously other than Bichette, I think I've liked what I've seen from IKF almost the best, which is a crazy thing to say so far, but he's getting the bat on the ball. He's making good contact. He's a good fielder. He's one of those guys that does the little things right. And I think that's something that we're seeing early in spring training.
Yeah, so we won't go too in depth into this today, but IKF or Cav. So I'm going to give you 3 guys: IKF, Cavan Biggio, Davis Schneider. Who do you want starting opening day at second and third?
I'm going to go with the only guy that hit a home run so far this spring training out of those 3 guys. I'm going to go with Davis Schneider at second base. And with Cavan Biggio and IKF, I think we're going to have to sell out for the hitting. And so far, Cavan Biggio, obviously, he's dealing with a little bit of a minor injury, so we haven't seen him yet. But I mean, based off what we've seen, there hasn't been a big sample size. But I got to go with IKF at third. I think he's just going to be the better fielder. And he's looked good so far in spring training. And I'm all for playing the hot hand. It doesn't matter where we are throughout the season.
Yeah, I like that take. I guess we'll see how Biggio looks to get into the year and get going. But so far, I think Davis Schneider is going to lock up that second base position pretty early on. And hopefully he can continue with the power that he's shown even through this spring training so far.
No, for sure. And one more player I wanted to shout out before we head out of here is Trevor Richards. And this is the guy that went 1.1 innings and had 4 strikeouts over those innings, gave up a hit and had a walk. But he went through the meat of the order. He had Kyle Schwarber at 1. He had Trey Turner at 2, Bryce Harper at 3. I think he had Alek Bohm somewhere in that order as well. And he was striking out these guys. I know Bryce Harper, I think, ended up getting the best of them with a hit to the first baseman there. Vladdy just went under his glove. But that's one of the best players in the NL. So I'm liking that Trevor Richards can kind of work himself out of jams, especially against some of the best hitters in all of the major leagues.
Yeah, he looked really, really good today. And, hopefully that he can continue and this bullpen can be as awesome and amazing as it was in last year. But we'll have to wait and see. And obviously when some of these guys face major league talent all day, that was the good thing with Trevor Richards. What we saw was that he did face some MLB talent. So it really proves his worth and hopefully he can keep that up the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't watch the full game, I'm going to be honest today, but I did see that Trevor Richards start. And this is why that who they're pitching against matters more so than what their stat line is. Because you can look at Trevor Richards, he's striking out guys like Trey Turner. Then you can look at Yimi Garcia. I'm not sure who he pitched against, but he had a clear line. But if he's going against a double A hitter, single A hitter, and a double A hitter, I'm going more with Trevor Richards striking out Trey Turner on a nasty changeup than I am on Yimi Garcia having scoreless innings against double A hitters.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's the important thing of why we always say that spring training doesn't matter, but it matters because it matters who you're facing, not necessarily the game as a whole, which we covered in depth in the last episode. Again, we want to thank you guys so much for watching. You can, or listening, wherever you're tuning in from. You can check out my Twitter, Braden5 Wasco. Carter's at Carter First 2. I'm still trying to get him going on the Twitter. I think we're making strides. We're putting out some TikToks as well. You can look up Locked On Blue Jays on TikTok and you'll find us. You can see me complaining about Garrett Cole. I'll be hopefully doing that a lot this season. So
yeah, with Twitter for me right now, I'm starting to do the surfing a little bit, and I have some tweets ready that I'm ready to overcook. But then I'm like, it's spring training. It's not worth it yet. Got to hold back a little bit. So I'm getting used to the Twitter grind, kind of navigating it, see how it's working. But we'll get into fruition throughout the season. And just before we head out, I wanted to give our 24/7 streaming channel one more shout out. The best time to binge watch sports. If you're up at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., even at midnight, and you have nothing to do, then just take a look at our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. There's going to be a ton of different episodes about all the sports leagues that you want to watch over there. Just go to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and subscribe.
thanks again for watching, guys. Tune in tomorrow. We got some cool episodes, some breakout players coming up. We want to go through maybe not the most headline players, but players that we think coming up, some of our prospects, some people like that, some people not as well known. Who do we think is going to be eye-catching this season? Talk to you guys tomorrow.